Hottie, do you have an easy time choosing birthday gifts for Mrs. Hottie?
Yes, I do, because she basically tells me what to buy her.
Well, that does make it easy. I also generally have a pretty easy time of it, but not this year. The Hammer had mentioned something about a gravel bike, and so I was big time into shopping mode and had something halfway picked out. But I have learned you don't want to surprise someone birthday gift-wise, either with a puppy or a bike. It's too personal, both ways. So I showed her the gravel bike I had in mind for her, and Lisa surprised me with information that made buying her gift way easier than I expected and way more helpful.
Yep, I've had the puppy thing backfire on me, so yep, puppy is out. But what was the surprise that made it easier?
Yeah, she said what she really wanted was to have her beloved felt road bike shift and brake, as well as her mountain bike, to be honest. So for her birthday, I upgraded her very nice carbon frame and wheels with Shimano. From power meter to cranks to Ultegra brakes and Ultegra Di2 drivetrain, the incredible wireless Di2 drivetrain, I took her good bike and I turned it into a great bike. She tells me now that this is without exception the best feeling, best shifting, best braking bike she has ever owned. And that's saying something.
Right. You've heard us go on and on about the capability and weight and efficiency, and Shimano certainly leads with all of those. But in the end, everything comes down to how your bike feels, and nothing feels like Shimano. So nice birthday gifting, Fatty.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, I did the exact same thing for my bike.
Of course you did.
So whether you are building or buying a new bike for a loved one or for yourself or for both, or making your existing good bike into a great bike, do what I just did and go to Shimano. Learn more about the title sponsor of this show at bike.shimano.com.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. It is Season 7, Episode 9 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I am Fatty. One thing every first-timer would love to have is a preview of Leadville. The course, the altitude, the town, all of it. But for many, 2 trips to Leadville in 1 year is just not doable. Well, we hope in this episode we can give you what passes for at least a partial preview.
Right, the Leadville Race Series has an annual camp, and at that camp, there are coaches, veterans of the race, who spread the Leadville knowledge. On this show, we have one of those coaches here to help you get ready. It's a secondhand experience, but one we think is well worth your time.
And here comes Eldon Nelson with 14 minutes to spare on that clock. The bragging rights and the heavy hardware, that's all you. Welcome back to your Leadville family and your finish line.
Fatty's finishing tips. Fatty, between this segment and our feature guest, this whole show is an FFT, so get to work with yours.
Okay. I've been thinking a lot about the final quarter of this race, which is where people really do their Leadville 100 suffering. You and I have talked about the power line at length already. So I want to focus on a tip for succeeding in what many people see as the most demoralizing part of the race, you included, the paved climb on Turquoise Lake Road up to Carter. So let's start with the why on this. Why do you and a lot of racers hate this climb?
Well, it comes after what is the hardest spot on the race, and that is the power line climb inbound. You figure once you've got that done, you're home, right? You're like, okay, I'm over power line. You descend even a little bit, so you kind of have some fun actually coming down Sugarloaf, and you get back on the pavement, and you're rolling around past May Queen, and you're thinking, all right, all I got to do is get to Carter, and then over Keevens, I'm done with this thing. And then that pavement climb hits, and you're like, well, it's pavement. I should be okay. But really, that's, even on a road bike, that would be a good little climb if you're out on a regular Saturday ride. So it really does kick you in the teeth. And it seems to drag on, too. It's like hard to see where you turn off. You're just looking for the volunteers to get you off this thing. So for a lot of reasons, I just cannot stand that thing.
Yeah. And I don't know if I can 100% erase how that feels for you and how it feels for a lot of people. But I do think there are 3 ways that I can reduce some of the effects of this admittedly hard, brutal, kick in the teeth climb. First, prepare. You're 90 miles into this 105-mile race when you begin this paved climb. So it is not going to be easy. However, the course gives you this amazing gift leading up to it, and that is 4 solid miles of easy downhill. From the moment you take that sharp right turn at the bottom of Sugarloaf onto Hagerman at mile 86 to mile 90 when you just pass the Mayqueen campground and begin the paved climb, you have what is, in fact, the easiest riding of the entire day. Hagerman is often a little bit washboardy, but you can usually find a good line. Use it. Use that time to get caught up on fluid. Then Turquoise Lake Road is downhill and paved for 2 miles, which you can use to get caught up on food. You've still got some miles in altitude in front of you, so use this rare opportunity to go fast for free while you are getting some calories on board. Second, understand the climb itself. You got to separate it from, what it is from how it feels. The climb starts after you've been on pavement for 2 miles, right at the bottom of that shoehorn bend I was talking about at mile 90. You are right at 10,000 feet. You are then going to climb on pavement for just 2.7 miles. It is that long, terrible climb you're thinking of. It is just 2.7 miles. And most of that is less than 4%. And it has little nasty punches at 7%, but they do not last for very long. Still, in that 2.7 miles, you're netting around 700 feet. That's 260 feet of climbing per mile. And while that hurts in the moment, it is far from being what is objectively a super hard climb. For myself anyways, it really helps to tell myself that this climb is not as bad as I've built it up to be in my head. And then third, smell the barn. It is super easy to get demoralized by this big climb so far into the race. So you got to stop thinking about what you're doing and dwell instead on where you're going, which is to a red carpet and a crowd of cheering fans. This is the last truly big obstacle you've got in this race, and you are doing it. It is happening. You are almost to the finish line. And finishing this climb means that you can finish the race. It is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I'm all better now. Maybe. Prepare for the climb. Fatty says, prepare for the climb. Understand the climb. So, know its data points and how far along you are in it. And smell that barn. Very important.
Oh, yeah. Guaranteed to make your climb 5% more tolerable, Hottie, or your money back.
Hey, we've had quite the winter and early spring here in Southern California with tons of rain for these parts. The good news is our dirt dries out fast, so it is rideable shortly after a storm. Rideable if you don't mind crusty conditions and dodging newly formed ruts. Post-storm, the dirt here is surprisingly rough, especially if horses have left their hoof prints in that crust.
Oh, yeah. Quick drying trails can be a blessing and a curse, but at least you're out there riding.
Yeah, at least you are. The conditions here have reminded me of why I love Envy's approach to engineering wheels. The other day, I decided to do a little underbiking and took the gravel bike with its G23s onto those crusty rough trails and went rambling right through some tasty washboard and equine hoof marks.
And I'm going to guess that you lost some fillies.
Not quite, but in fact, I kept things on track nicely, carving corners and darting around ruts, and it's all thanks to the way Envy's wheels ride through the rough stuff. It's fine to have stiff wheels, but they can be too stiff, and Envy knows this, which is why they engineered some compliance into its off-road wheels, especially its gravel and XC hoops.
Yep, and that ride characteristic is just the thing you're going to need at Leadville. It is a long day, and there is no need to shake loose your dental work in the process because your wheels are transmitting an earthquake essentially through your frame. Envy wheels will take the edge off the goat trail descent, the Sugarloaf descent, and more, including the Hagerman, which we've just talked about the washboardy there. Check out Envy's superior riding wheels at ENVE. That's envy.com.
When it comes to bike clothing, Fatty, you know how you have those bib shorts that you keep in reserve for race day, that special pair or two that you avoid wearing on shorter rides or on the trainer just so you don't wear them out prematurely?
Oh yeah, I've got bibs that are almost exclusively for the most important days on the bike. I mean, bibs are kind of like tires. You get something you trust and you stick with them. And you try not to wear them out before the big day.
And I think we both agree that something is DNA's gravel bibs, those special bibs, right? I like them because I tend to sit a little hard in the saddle, so I need a good amount of padding, and those bibs have a chamois I can count on.
100% agree. It is a great chamois. I also love those side mesh pockets. It is a great place to stash my empty gel packets. And another great feature are those bib straps. They are seamless, so they don't dig into my shoulders, which can get very annoying on long rides.
And don't be mistaken by the name gravel bibs. These are good for any discipline, especially off-road. And by the way, gravel bibs, or whatever you want to call them, are available for custom orders too. Fatty and I use the gravel bibs for one of our podcast kits, and they look great. Check out all of DNA's bib shorts and get started with a custom order at dnacycling.com. Fatty, I prepared for my first Leadville mostly by talking to people who'd done the race before. The movies were out at the time, and they were a big help, but mostly I relied on reading blogs like yours and talking to people who'd done it, like Nate Whitman.
Yeah, remember the old bulletin boards, those online BBSs? That was another way to get great information. And then along came the podcast about the Leadville Trail 100. What a blessing for the whole rest of the world. So, even though I've completed this race 25 times, I continue to talk to vets of the 100, hoping to gain more insight before I take the starting line. And one of the most reliable sources is on the show today. Ray Landry is a good friend of mine. He's a multi-time finisher, and he is one of the course coaches at the Leadville 100 mountain bike camp. And he's here to share his wisdom on what it takes to find the red carpet. Ray Landry, welcome to my podcast dungeon, and welcome to the Leadville podcast.
Geez, thank you so much. Great to be here, Hottie. Great to be here, Eldon.
So, Ray is the guy that I go to when I have questions about Leadville. You'll remember, Hottie, when we were learning about the changes to the course, it was Ray who was on site and gave us all the beta and the Stravas about the race. He loves this thing, something awful. And Ray, how many times have you actually been one of the Leadville Camp of Champions coach?
This is going to be my 4th year at the Camp of Champions. Camp of Champions.
Champ of Champions. I don't know if there's anyone who can say that thing properly. Please do let us know. So, and you've done the race a few times. How many times have you done it?
I am, as you started off, I am going to go for my 5th finish this year. 6th start. I had a DNF my first year out.
Oh, that's a story itself. So why did you not finish your first time?
Geez, 2017, first year at Leadville. I flatted going down Sugarloaf towards Powerline and had never changed the tire on a set of Envy wheels. And so didn't understand about that little divot in the middle to pinch the tire into and couldn't get it off. I wasted about an hour and 10 minutes on that 10-minute section of the course and then went chasing after that cutoff time at Twin Lakes and just didn't make it.
Yes, the channel and a carbon rib, folks. That's where you want to try to put your bead as you're getting your tire back on. We'll do a whole discussion on that in our next Envy read, Fatty. I think that's what we need to do. We
really should. It is very easy to change a tire with an Envy rim if you know how to do it. And I mean, that is really one of the key learnings that I think anyone who has done this race knows. And that is, don't do anything for the first time on race day.
Ray, you're a big buckler too, though, right? We shouldn't just dwell on the DNF.
Yeah, I've got 2 big buckles. Last year was my fastest time at an 8:49, a little slower than I was hoping to get, but still got the big buckle. 2021, I had my biggest fear, which was a 9:01, to miss it by 1 minute. I had stopped at the last aid station to say hi to Judy, and burned an extra minute that I was a little cocky and had altitude brain. So keep moving, don't stop.
Oh, man. What a lesson. What a lesson. I love it. So, and speaking of teaching lessons, in addition to doing the Camp of Champions, you also do coaching for the local high school team. Is that right?
Yeah, I help out a little bit at Corner Canyon and also with Roulaire Devo team, period. Don't need to say period there, excuse me. Which is for local kids who want to go on and race nationals. And so I try and help out a little bit here and there.
And what do the kids think of the Leadville 100?
Gosh, I love sharing the story. Just as you talk about it all the time, I talk about it all the time with other people as well. And I hope it gives me a little street cred with the kids. And a lot of them are interested in doing Leadville now, and quite a few have. I've been lucky to start 2 different years. I did a race with Kendall Nelson a few years ago where she learned to eat. Kept telling her eat, and she didn't, and she bonked. Last year, took a Walker Dunbar there, and he did an 8:18, which was really great. I remember catching him before Hagerman Road and thinking, this isn't good. He shouldn't be here. And he took off and finished quite a bit in front of me. So
8:18. The kids are getting faster and faster. So let's get to the main reason that we have got you here. You have been at the camp and heard a lot of questions from a lot of riders who want to know a lot of the same things that our listeners do. And I think that hearing the most common questions you get and the answers you give them could be super useful. So let's start with what I think Hottie and I would both agree is the number one gating factor for the Leadville 100. If you don't eat right, you're not going to finish the race. So when people come and talk to you about how they should eat at Leadville 100, what do you tell them?
Oh, geez, this is such a broad topic and one that comes up every single year. I love to share a story with them. I start off with that this is an eating event disguised as a mountain bike race, to quote Eldon multiple times. And I tell them about a buddy of mine, Jesse, who was doing the race a few years back and decided that he could make it from Pipeline back to the finish on just a few gummy worms. And just before he got to the pavement section on the boulevard, he said he started weaving left and right, and he knew he was going to pass out. So he laid down in the ditch there before the pavement and took a nap. We got a call. I was already at the finish line, got a call that he was laying there, and the Creighton, who was doing my support, got on his bike, rode down, came up, slid to a stop. Jesse, get up. And got him up and got him on his bike and got him to the finish line. So yeah, you have to eat, or you're gonna end up in a real big hole or taking a nap on the course. I see a lot of different things. I see people that show up that are drinking water and think they're going to eat a power bar along the way at 10,000 feet. Not a very good option.
So what are the folks who are looking for advice? What are the top, say, 3 things that they're either mystified about or getting wrong?
I think it's calorie intake. It's not wanting to carry anything. And now the new one is it's carbs. I mean, a few years back, I don't remember ever thinking about how many carbs I was consuming. It was all about what the calorie count was. And at the time I had a coach, I was eating about 300 calories an hour. And after a ride training for BWR, she said, we're looking at your kajoules and you need to eat 400 calories an hour. So I upped my calorie intake. And that's the main thing that I end up talking with these people about is setting a goal for hourly calorie intake. The thing I like about the Garmin that the Wahoo doesn't have is a timer. And so my Garmin will tell me every 30 minutes when it's time to put something in my mouth. The nice thing about this course, and I'll sit down with a map with anybody at camp, and I can tell them where they're going to be every 30 minutes, where there's a calm section where you could take a hand off the bars, put a gel in your mouth, take a drink. That first left-hand turn at the top of Keevens, that's 30 minutes into the race. That's the perfect time to put something in your body. The next 30 minutes later, you're on the pavement heading down Turquoise Lake. Another great place to put something in your body. I like to have those little spots in my mind that I've learned from listening to this podcast and from riding the course so many times, so that as I approach those, I know I'm ready. Okay, as soon as I get here, I'm going to eat. As soon as I get to there, deep breath, I'm going to eat. I'm going to turn on Hagerman Road, I'm going to eat. I'm going to turn up Sugarloaf, I'm going to eat. The more you can get in the front or the beginning half of the race, I tell these campers, the better. It gets harder and harder to eat the later and later it gets in that day.
You, of course, are paying attention to what folks are eating during the camp as well as during the race. What do you see people having struggles with versus what are they able to consume during the really key difficult parts of the race, the Columbine climb, the power line climb?
And Columbine's such a long segment too. You really need to carry a lot of nutrition with you. I love a pack for Columbine because it's easier to drink, even though it's easier to take your hand off the bar as you're breathing so hard. What surprises me at camp is the number of people that are not getting their calories from drink mixes. That's been a standard for me since I started in this game, and it's just such an easy way to get calories. I see a lot of people with goo. Goo is very popular. Their name's out there and people are using it. I love the SIS and those, I think it's called the isotonic gel, that you don't need liquid in order to digest. And so I've been doing SIS for quite a while, and I've brought in extra SISs and shared them with riders on the course. Morton makes a great gel. I like to mix those in. I think gels and drink mixes are a great way to go. And I always tell people, Twin Lakes is a great place to eat something solid. You know, I'll have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich there. Again, I'm sharing my experiences. I consider myself one of those riders that needs 1% more in order to finish this race. And so I think for that reason, I relate with these riders, because we're not getting pros that show up at the camp. We're getting normal people like you and I who have set a big goal. And I volunteer my time because I want to see them achieve that goal.
So let's turn from the nutrition piece to the bikes. You're seeing folks roll into camp with, I imagine, a pretty wide variety of bikes and gear. What are some of the mistakes you've seen people bring into the camp? And what is the guidance that you would give people so that they can have a successful, camp or for the race?
Well, geez, to start off, the first question I get is, what bike should I ride? What bike shouldn't I ride? I usually defer to the pros on that one, and I'll say, look at what Keegan rides, look what Payson rides, look what Sophia rides or Hannah. They're on a mountain bike. You want to be on a mountain bike. There are riders who want to take it on in a gravel bike, and if you're a great rider, it totally can be done. But for most of these people who are normal people who work a 9 to 5, I think being on the right bike is going to make a big difference. The other thing I'll notice at the camp is an array of bikes. I mean, you have guys on brand new S-Works and you have people on old trail bikes. Regardless of what it is, I say, get the bike you can afford. You don't need more than 120 mil of suspension, is my recommendation. I've ridden with guys on enduro bikes, and you'll see them putting in massive amounts of work to pedal, while those on XC bikes are chatting and not breathing as hard. And so you want a bike that doesn't have a lot of bob, as they put it. The other thing I'd touch on is bike maintenance. Man, it is a long season of preparation for this race, and this race is a very long day. And I'll see cassettes gummed up with grease and oil. I'll see brake pads worn out. Last year, I was riding behind Sarah and noticed her rear swing arm wobbling side to side. One of the bearings was out. I haven't seen that happen very often, but get your bike ready for this race. You are spending a great deal of money on an entry fee and a great deal of money on an Airbnb. By all means, please go to your local bike shop, get some brake pads, check the torque settings on your bolts.
I imagine the other huge question is, Ray, what tires do I need? We have spent, I don't know, 3 episodes, Fatty, just talking about tires alone. This is a hard one though, right? I mean, how do you frame that advice to folks?
I always defer to a tire that has flat protection. I know that S-Works makes a light pair of tires. I know that Aspen has a lighter version. But if you get a flat tire, you will spend more time fixing that flat tire than you will have gained by running a tire that was a few grams lighter. So I always tell people, hey, flat protection, yes. Do you have to have it on the front tire? No, you don't. If you want to save a little weight there, you can. I like fast rolling. All the companies make a good XC tire, but I really defer to flat protection and tread based upon your riding ability. You don't need, again, I'm talking specialized because I know them, you don't need a ground control for Leadville. Fast tracks are great. If you're a really good rider, you can run Renegades. If you look at what Keegan runs, he runs that special version of the Aspen that has almost nothing on it. But that guy is amazing, and he's better than me, so I'm not trying to do that. Tread design, go minimal. You know, you're going to spend a lot of time on dirt roads and pavement, but you need to have the ability to take the corners going down Columbine without washing out, something I have done.
Yeah, the thing about Leadville, and we find this in Southern California too, is you've got loose over hard conditions, provided it doesn't rain, right? So nothing is going to grip that great. Even an enduro tire is going to slide around a little bit. So you gotta be comfortable with the slide. It's gonna happen. You're gonna feel some slippage, and you're gonna hear it, and it can be unnerving, right, Fatty? I mean, but mountain biking is a lot of it is about not having perfect grip all the time. It's just gonna happen, and no matter what tire you have, obviously if you have Keegan's tire, you're gonna probably slip more, but none of it's going to be perfect.
I 100% agree. I will say that it is always worth your time to, it's better to waste a little bit of time rolling a little bit slower if you're going to be more comfortable. I use the same tires all the time. I am always riding on Ardents. Hottie, you've told me, I don't know, a dozen times that I am riding on too aggressive of a tire for the race. I understand that, but you know what? I am comfortable and feel safe, and it has been a while since I have crashed. So, you know, it is more about, you know, I am riding for comfort, and, you know, the speed, you know, that will come. And if I'd rather get across the finish line a little safer than a little faster. But I do want to sort of go to what you were talking about. You are right there with the Camp of Champion riders on different pieces of the course. I want to get your sense. I mean, what are the most important things you tell people for the iconic parts of the course? What is the information that they must have to have a good day on the race?
You know, Eldon, camps evolved. Since Tamara took it over, we've changed some things, and I think made them a lot better. It's not a race, is what she constantly tells us. And so I've loved that, because after the first year, when we all ended up together, Trapper, Tamara, Bryson, and I, and then all of a sudden we look and there's 4 guides all by ourselves heading to Columbine, and we go, this probably isn't what they brought us here to do.
I'm winning camp.
I'm winning camp. Look at me. So now, like, the second day on the course, I usually will start off with the group. I make my way to the front on the pavement. I talk about the start, and I go, hey, I like to be to the left for that right-hand sweeper by the school. You can pass a lot of people there. You don't want to be pinched off in the middle. So I'm talking about that as we're pedaling up that hill. And then down the dirt road, last year I'm following, I've got Melissa's wheel, getting a nice draft on that dirt road as we head to the base of Keevens and make that left. And then I always get off the bike right there at Keevens, and I start yelling at all the campers, 1.1 miles, 535 feet. It gets steeper as it goes. Go as easy as you can. That first climb is such a doozy. You're just not ready for it. I have taken so many riders off there and seen them off their bikes, gasping for air, thinking they're going to die in a panic. And so I really talk about going slow at the start there and realizing it's only 1.1 miles, but it doesn't mean go hard. You're not Alexi. You can't sprint up that. You've got to go easy. Columbine, man, such a long climb. I talk with them about really pacing up that, knowing your numbers, as Jonathan Lee says. Don't go above them. Rose Grant, I think you called her the queen of pacing, and boy, is she. When you listen to the way she does that race and she doesn't get egged on by the other riders, it's just so impressive. So Columbine, I set in at my numbers. What is that? I think it's a little over 6 miles, but it's 3,000 feet. I try and just go at the same pace. 2 years ago, I was riding up it with, what's the Dream Chaser's name?
Ty Hall.
I was riding up with Roxanne, and we chatted the whole way up, and it was the most pleasant climb of Columbine I've ever had. That section just takes everything I have, and just by kind of going at an easier pace, I felt so much better. So at camp, again, I talk about, hey, let's slow down. Let's talk about this. Last year at camp, I put together some riders who all had an FTP and a watts per kilogram that I thought these guys are solid sub-9 riders. And so we rode it at my 100, sub-9 pace from quite a few years back at 240 watts. And it was interesting to see those who stayed on and those who fell off. The other thing I do when I get to the top of it is I'm riding along and we're talking with the group, who wants to try and clean this? It's a great day to do it. It's not a race day. I don't do it in race day, but we'll get some riders together that want to try and clean the top of Columbine, and we'll do that together. Some of them make it, some of them don't, but it's a fun thing to try. At camp, it's a great time to stop and take pictures and take things in. We're not out there to drag the day on forever, but I know where these key sections are on the course that are worth taking a picture, and we'll stop and take a picture and chat about the course. We'll chat about the descent before we go down. We'll chat about the climb before we go up. The power line climb is one, same deal. I stop at the bottom. I, talk with people as I'm riding there from Pipeline, who wants to clean it, and we'll clean it together. And people are surprised at how slow cleaning power line is. The thing I've learned from doing it at camp and doing it during stages and doing it during the 100 is you don't bleed a lot of time in difference between walking and riding. One year I was in the 100 and I was literally walking with my hand on another guy's back as he was riding up that last kicker, and we were going the same speed. And so, again, as Eldon says, don't burn all your matches, or maybe that's Hottie that continually pounds that into the rider's head.
I think we'll both own that advice.
The descents are the scary part for the riders. Honestly, a lot of riders come to the camp who aren't good descenders, and so from the ground up has had quite a few riders go down on that power line descent. Or do you call it power line all the way from the top of Sugarloaf, or are you saying Sugarloaf to power line?
No, power line.
Power line, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what power line descent, we've had quite a few riders crash there. So another place I stop, hey, here's what we're going to see. We're going to drop into the right. There's going to be a wash. Be cautious, be careful. Thing I talked with campers about, the difference between my time and Payson's time is 20, 30 seconds. I'm not the fastest guy out there. I'm also not the slowest, but 20, 30 seconds is not worth risking an accident that puts you out of the race for. I can get back down to the bottom of power line and I can start pedaling for 30 seconds and make that time up.
Let's talk gels. This is the go-to food, if you can call them food, for on-bike fueling, especially at Leadville. They are great because they go down fast, they are easy to carry, and at least for the first few, they can taste pretty good. And most of us can down more than a dozen over the course of the Leadville Trail 100. Most of us, but not all.
Yeah, if you're a racer with a stomach that is not lined with iron, like mine or Fatty's, then you're probably looking for a fast and convenient energy source that will not turn your gut into a gurgling, goopy mess. We have a suggestion, and it's something that is available at the feed. The product is Spring Energy. I was handed one of their gels on a group trail ride recently. I gave it a go, and my first reaction was this thing would be great for the person who has a hard time stomaching gels.
Yeah, the Spring Energy Awesome Sauce gels have 180 calories. They're made from ingredients you're going to recognize: organic rice, applesauce, yams, maple syrup, lemon juice, and sea salt. Ooh, kind of like that. 45 grams of carbs, that is half an hour's worth or more for most of us, in a gel that is easy on the gut.
And if 180 calories is too much for one serving, then Spring Energy has gels with 100 calories per packet. The feed has a combo pack if you'd like to try Spring Energy. Claim your $80 in annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Register your email, verify your phone number, then spend your first feed credit of $20 right away. Okay, more insights with Leadville mountain bike camp coach Ray Landry. Regarding the start, there's a lot of nerves surrounding the Leadville start, even though they've tried to make it safer with corrals and wave starts. There still seems to be a lot of nervous energy there for people. And largely this is because, you've got mountain bikers or just people who have just not been in a lot of races yet, and they're not used to being in packs, right? So is there any tip that you offer those campers, or do you try and show them something about riding elbow to elbow on a pavement on a cold morning?
So I have the riders, same thing I talk to the kids at the high schools about in their starts. Hands all the way to the outside of the bars. I'll even hang my pinky off the edge of my grips so that if someone bumps me, they bump my hand before they bump my bike, which gives me little bit more time to respond. Elbows out, bent, wide, take a wide stance on your bike so if something bounces it around. I think something that's overlooked by a lot of riders is the physical strength it takes to do this race. I've recently started doing more weightlifting, and I was a big weightlifter before I got into cycling, so I didn't have to do it for the first number of years, but doing dialed health it's been amazing how when I feel my bike slip or someone bumps me, I just naturally react because he does so many things with balance and stretching and core. And so last year at the start of camp, day one, before we started the descending clinic, Trapper got up and did some stretches and some moves to show people, things they should be doing to work on their balance. So I talk about that. I said, be very cautious. I like to stay to the outside so that I can have one way to look. Kind of like if you're riding that carpool lane, you only have one direction, someone can come over on you. If you're on the left or right, you know that someone shouldn't be coming around you in the dirt. If they are, that's a special type of idiot, and get away from him.
Hey, one more thing about the start too, and we hear a lot of hand wringing over this or see a lot of hand wringing over it, and we get a lot of questions about it, and that is those back corrals and whether or not a good time or even a finish is achievable from those corrals. People get very worried about being that far back right at the start. So what do you tell folks about starting in one of the back corrals?
A common question. It's a tough one to address. I know it used to be a major issue getting to Kevens when you started in that white corral. It was just a given you were going to end up walking. But with the delayed starts, I know it's controversial. Some people don't like them. I like the idea. It puts a little less stress. I believe I tell the campers, whatever corral you're in, get there early, get to the front of that corral. There's plenty of room on the pavement, the dirt for things to settle out. You shouldn't have a problem on Kevens. That's their biggest fear. I really feel like the people who haven't raced, they might have been walking anyways. They're going to be going slow up it. If you're going for a 12-hour day, it's not that big of a problem. Really, the difference between the 9:01 and the 11:59 is nothing. Don't panic and don't let your day be ruined stressing about that. There's a lot more of that day to come. If you're going for sub-9, is it difficult? Yes. Is it possible? 100%. You're not going to be the only fast rider in the white corral that didn't do any qualifiers. There's going to be other ones in there. Get there early, get to the front. You're going to see who's putting in work on the pavement. You're going to see who's not. Ty does it faster than me. I've been passed by him every year I've done that race. I always enjoy a nice little conversation up Powerline as he passes me after mile 80. It's totally doable. I've known many riders that do it. If you're having a big fear and this is your A race and you want your sub-9, which we can get into sub-9 because that's another one of the big questions. Do a qualifier. I hate to say it, but man, get out there, do a qualifier. It can make a big difference on your race day if you can start towards the front and put that anxiety behind you. But is it possible from the white? 110% it is.
What are the questions that you think ought to be asked? The things that you aren't being told, the segments that campers are ignoring or aren't aware of in this race?
Let's see. I'd start with the start, which we discussed, the fear of being in different corrals and what to do in the group, not being quick in your movements. Hottie, you can go if you ride road a lot, like we all do to train. If someone's jerking and moving around, I'm going to stay away from them. Doing what I said with the hands to the outside of the bars so that you've got a little bit of room in case someone bumps you. That's great at the start. Number 2, power. They don't really talk about it a ton. You do, which is so great. And I've gotten a power meter because of what I learned from you and writing your numbers. This is not a, Keegan and Payson are sprinting for a finish. Most people at camp, probably all of them aren't. Although last year, Todd Wells did, I believe, win his age category, which was awesome. I don't think he had to sprint, but it's a different day. I love hearing Hannah talk about a race because it's so different than what the most of the riders are getting to. And I think what they're doing with camp is trying to get the regular riders there. So pacing is a huge one. Eating is a huge one. Talking about the feed stations, what to do with your team. I love having people there to help. I know they have neutral aid and they do a great job. There was a year I needed to use it. My mother was so lost on course and couldn't find me. I spent an hour of stoppage time to get my first finish the second year at 10:30. And the next year in comparison, I did an 8:54 with 2 minutes, 30 seconds of stoppage time. The big thing I talk to campers about is do not stop moving forward. We see some slow riders. I've ridden with some slow riders and I've watched them finish that race because they don't stop moving forward. I don't care how slow you're moving. You are faster than if you're stopped. I think that's a big one that should be talked about, not getting off your bike at the aid stations. It should be a NASCAR pit stop. It really should when you roll into Twin Lakes. That's the only time I put a foot down out and the only time I put down back. I've stopped to relieve a little bit of water once on the course. Other times I roll through it. But that's the only time I stop and I try and make it fast, 60 seconds or less. I literally remember my support crew with a stopwatch going 10, 9, 8, and then pushing me off as I'm pulling the bib shorts back down from them running PR lotion on.
Hottie, you've never actually got out a stopwatch as you're crewing for me.
I have. No, that's wrong. I do have your times. I think the first year I crewed for you, I timed them and bragged about it too.
I figured that was just based on record time. Okay, very good.
Oh, it was based on recording time. You're right. I mean, but my recorder, it was in essence a stopwatch as well.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I do know that
I think we did a minute or something like that.
Yeah. We don't dilly-dally. It's not time to record a podcast. So, Ray, what is the thing that racers are most afraid of when they come into this, when they come to the camp?
I'd like to say it's not finishing. Man, that hurts. I've done it. And so I think it helps me relate to the campers because a lot of them don't finish, and I'll see them after the 100 and they're upset. And I talk to them and I go, you know who else didn't finish their first Leadville? And I go, me. They're like, no way, that can't be. You're so fast. I was like, didn't finish my first year. It's okay. But I don't want to prepare them to not finish. I want to give them the confidence to finish. So I think that's a big fear, is not finishing. Number 2 is descending. They're scared of that power line descent. It's rocky, it's rough. And that one really doesn't scare me. I love that descent. It's fun. It's real mountain biking. The one at the top of Columbine, when you've got riders going up while you're going down and it's loose and it's big rocks, that scares me. I tell them to be cautious. I think the answer to the fear of the descending is usually, again, look at the times. I mean, you can hang it all out there to be 20, 30 seconds faster. You're not going to win the race there. We all need the 1% more in order to get to that finish line. But again, crashing is not going to get you there. And being recovered when you get to the bottom of the descent because you didn't freak yourself out and being able to pedal for 20, 30 seconds more is better. The last one is knowing how to work on their bike. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my local bike shop and asked them to show me, how do I pull a crank arm off so I can change the change ring on this transmission? They're happy to show me.
Right. You know, Leadville would not be Leadville if it were not for the altitude. That really makes the race, right? That's what's so special about this place. What do you tell people about altitude? Like, they all want to know what should I expect? How am I going to react? I don't know how I'm going to react, Ray. What's going to happen to me? So what do you tell people? And how do the campers feel like after they've been there, just in general?
I like to say there's no better way to prepare for Leadville than to ride Leadville. And so these campers are taking the best step they can towards success by pre-riding that course. And in that, seeing what the elevation is like. I have listened to podcast after podcast and done Google search after Google search to see what is the best way to handle elevation. Do I show up the day before? Do I show up a week before? Do I show up 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before? What do the pros do? And you know what I've really come to understand is everyone is different. And so I tell campers the best way to find out how you're going to respond to the elevation is to go to the elevation, and you're doing that today. It is amazing that day we ride up the Mineral Belt Trail, which we've done 100 times, and seeing people who are just cruising along and others who are like literally ready to die. They can't catch their breath. Same thing on Kevins. Elevation affects us all differently. And if you're not going to camp, I would encourage you to go somewhere and see what 10,000 feet and above is like. I don't know where you find another place to ride at 12,600, but find something at 10,000 and see what it's like and do some efforts on it. Nothing is going to scare you more than trying to go too hard or go into the red at 10,000 feet and above and then wonder if you can't catch your breath. I've done it. I've thrown my helmet off, my gloves off because I think it's going to help me breathe more, freaking out. But getting that freak out over with so you know what to do and what not to do, I think is the biggest deal. And that's where the campers are getting a major advantage. I think above everything is seeing the course and seeing it at elevation.
Yeah. Such great advice. No substitute for experience. It's true.
What we tell people here is if you can't go to elevation, if you can't go to 10,000 feet, maybe you go to 6,000. If that's doable, do it, see how you react. And if you can't do any of it, just do your best to get in the best possible shape you can and trust that will work. Because it will. I mean, somebody living at sea level, if they raise their FTP as great as they can, they work on their breathing, and just become as fit as you can, then you kind of got to give into the rest of it. And I think you'll have a good day. If you come in and going, I'm fit. I'm as fit as I've ever been. I think you'll be fine.
100%. I mean, I've done camp with people from Texas. I've done camp with people from California. I've done it with people from Denver. Chris Woods, who was a good friend of mine from Texas, I remember doing that lead challenge where we were to climb 100,000 feet in a month, and he did it in Texas with overpasses. Cool. He had to do it almost all on Zwift. And the year he got his sub-9, which was the last year he did the race, unfortunately, he went and spent 3 weeks there getting acclimated. Last year, I did the 3-week deal. I put it all in. And that's not possible for everybody, and it doesn't need to be. I've done sub-9 showing up 5 days before. I've done 10.5 showing up 5 days before. I've shown up the day before in race stage races. You can still get to the finish if you're fit. I mean, that's the most important thing, Hottie. You hit it on the head. You know, those racers from California racing at sea level, their legs are so strong because they have all the oxygen in the world to pump to them to build those muscles, and that's going to give them an advantage when they get there. I did Belgian waffle in California one year, and I mean, man, my power numbers were through the roof until all of a sudden my legs were cramping and it wasn't. And I learned that all that breathing that I do in Utah that kind of limits me wasn't there in California. And so my muscles gave out before my lungs did. Totally different experience. And there's two ways to finish this race. You know, there's those with the strong lungs and those with the strong muscles, and both of them are going to be able to get to the finish line.
Yep. Yeah, I will say my very fastest Leadville, I arrived in Leadville on the Thursday before the race, which I now understand is not the best way to do it. And the fact is, I was in the best shape of my life. And so I had a fantastic day. It's in the end, sure, if you can move to Leadville, by all means do. That is fantastic. A lot of people seem to have done that. But it's like what Hottie said. Just be as fit as you possibly can. If you can come and take a vacation at high altitude, that is worth it on its own merits. You will have a good time. Ray, let's finish up by, tell folks what they can kind of expect from the camp experience. What's it going to be like to come and do the camp?
Well, it's going to be, I guess it's a 4-day camp. if we go with the start to the last ride at the finish with friends. You're going to meet riders of all abilities. Don't be scared. People show up nervous. They're not talking to anyone. It's kind of like being back in high school. There's all these people around. But really, everyone's there with the same fears. What's the course going to do to me? How hard is this really? And I will say that at the end of camp, a couple of years ago, man, a lot of people left very discouraged. And I was getting messages, I don't think I can do this. This is too hard. And we've really taken or tried hard to slow things down because we want to see everyone get to that finish, including at camp. So you're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to find riders in your ability. Tamara is pushing hard for more women in cycling, which I love. I think we all do. We love to see more of anyone who wants to ride. And so don't be afraid if you're showing up as a single woman. There's some girls that show up. I've seen a couple of people that do the camp multiple years. Lots of them do. The Seymours come every single year and do camp and have a great time and help people out. But there's plenty of women. There's plenty of men. There's plenty of people of all abilities. You're not going to go there and get dropped by a bunch of pros who are going to leave you by yourself and you're going to get lost. Not going to happen. It's you riding with friends. I encourage you to, show up that day one. You're going to do a downhill clinic. Very simple, very easy, but it's difficult for others. If you see someone having a difficult time, offer them some support, some encouragement. Larissa Connors cheers for every single person as she goes down Columbine. I've done that every year since I've seen her do that. One of my favorite parts of the course. And so cheer people on at camp too. Hey, you're doing great. Hey, awesome. Nothing helps more than getting a little bit of confidence. Great food. Every night there's an awesome dinner. I'm not talking hamburgers and hot dogs. They did a couple years ago a lamb with a feta cheese that was locally grown. It was to die for good. Vegetarian options as well. You're going to see the whole course. This year they changed the dates. So I don't know if everyone's aware of that yet, but the mountain bike camp and the run camp switched. I'm nervous about this because I've been to camp when there's still snow on the top of Sugarloaf and Columbine, and we haven't been able to go all the way to the top. If you don't get to go all the way to the top, don't worry. It will still be there when you come back for the 100, and you'll get a chance to see it then. But you'll get a chance to see the whole course. I encourage people that come to the camp to ask questions. The guides are volunteering their time. None of us are paid. We go there because we want to help you achieve a goal that we had set for ourselves, which is to get that first buckle, to get to that first finish line. There are riders who have done it. What's Todd Wells at now? 20?
Todd Wells, I actually don't know how many times he's done the race.
So, Todd Murray that's done it every year?
Oh, Todd Murray.
Todd Murray,
Todd Murray. He'll be getting number 30 this year.
So Todd's done it 30 years. And you're going to meet people who aren't cocky about 30 years of experience. I remember meeting Todd and someone was asking questions about how long a segment was, and I'm giving him answers. And then I find out Todd's there, and I go, Todd, I'm super embarrassed. I should just shut up and stay behind you and let you talk. And he goes, Ray, you know more about this course than I do. He's like, I don't analyze it like you do. He's like, by all means, tell these people how long this climb is. He's like, I'm interested to hear what it is. I just do it. But you're going to meet peoples of all abilities, all from all over the world, who all want to go there and have a great time. It is honestly such a fun couple of days. 2 days on the course, 1 day a downhill. Then the last day we do a shakeout ride that is not as highly attended. We have less riders out, but we do the Mineral Belt Trail, and then we go hit a little bit of single track. But honestly, it's probably the best thing you can do short of having a coach or using Trainer Road to prepare fitness-wise is to go see that course. It's going to save you a lot of time on race day when you know what to expect and where this is coming and what is coming up.
Ray, you are the single best ad for the camp I have ever heard. I would encourage Tamara to give you a raise, but apparently you're doing this for free. So a raise wouldn't necessarily be all that much. She should give you $1. Hey, thanks so much, man. I love your enthusiasm. Love that you are probably outside of this podcast, the biggest Leadville nerd I have ever met.
It's all because of you. When I went the first year, I didn't even know what Leadville was, and I ran support for someone, and and I'd love to share some stories about seeing people on course, but I found this podcast and really geeked out on it. And I'm not a geeky type person. I'm not a numbers type person, but I have every climb in my head, what the distance is, what the elevation is. And I break this race down into small bite-sized pieces through the day, and I achieve each one at a time. And I thank you for that. You've helped me. You, Hottie, Eldon, have helped me get to quite a few finishes. They are adamant about me getting to 10 and getting my name on a buckle. So I've got this year and then 5 more to go, which sounds like a lot. I'm getting older every year, but super excited about it and grateful for the opportunity to be on the podcast. What you do is great, and everyone at the camp knows who you are. I hope one year we get you out to camp. Both of you would be great. Come share some of that expertise. I would pay money to ride with Eldon at the camp. Come on now.
Dude, we don't do that kind of thing for free. Once again, thanks so much to Ray Landry. We did a pretty good job there selling the camp, I would say, Hottie. Unfortunately, as of this recording for this episode, the camp is sold out. What a surprise. There's always next year, of course. And if you do plan on going, make sure you set aside some cash. For 2024, the fee for the camp alone is $1,050. And of course, the more popular option is the camp plus race entry, which lets you skip the lottery. And that's $2,200. That is some money.
Wow. That is some cash. Set aside. Start saving now, folks. Hey, if you are getting something out of Ray's advice, there's more of that kind of stuff going on our Slack channel. Just go to leadville.fm/Slack. If you like this show, go to wherever you listen, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. And to see all the ways you can find this independent show, it is leadville.fm.
Good luck in your Leadville training and planning. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you real soon at the starting line.